The midday sun scorched the savannah, turning the dry grass golden yellow. Distant acacia trees cast thin shadows on the ground, and a light breeze rustled the grass. A young cheetah cautiously moved across the open space. Its hindquarters were completely covered with larvae, making it difficult to move. The cheetah twitched its paw, trying to shake them off, shuddered, and looked back. Every step was difficult, and the animal seemed irritated and anxious. Despite the discomfort, the cheetah continued to walk, its eyes alert and restless. Every movement of its hindquarters showed that the animal was suffering and unable to free itself from them. Rafi, an experienced wildlife rescuer, walked slowly across the savannah, checking coordinates and making new notes on his tablet. He moved confidently, stopping occasionally to check the map. The midday heat was intense. The grass rustled under his feet, and the wind barely touched his uniform. Rafi was immersed in his work and carefully surveyed the area. When he looked up from his tablet again, he noticed something unusual in the far corner of the field. He stopped and turned his back to the sun, peering into the distance. A cheetah lay among the burnt grass, and Rafi immediately realized that something was wrong with the animal. Its silhouette was tense and motionless, and even from a distance, it was clear that the back of the beast looked abnormal. Rafi moved forward slowly, stepping carefully on the dry ground. He kept his arms close to his body so as not to make any unnecessary noise, and watched the cheetah's every move. The closer he got, the clearer it became that the animal was weak and lying motionless. Rafi stopped a few steps away, preparing to assess the animal's condition. Rafi gently knelt down next to the exhausted cheetah. The animal could barely lift its head, its breathing heavy and irregular. The predator's back and thighs were completely covered with large greenish-yellow larvae. They were wriggling and clinging tightly to the irritated skin. Rafi removed one glove to better feel the pressure of his fingers and began to very carefully remove the first crawling larva. He worked slowly, trying not to jerk so as not to cause the cheetah unnecessary pain. When he removed the first few parasites, redness and small bleeding wounds appeared underneath. Rafi frowned. The infection was serious, and he had no time to think. He took metal tweezers from his belt bag and began to remove the larvae that were deepest. Some were clinging so tightly that he had to gently wiggle them for a few seconds to remove them without damaging the animal's tissue. He constantly switched between his fingers and the tool, adjusting to the location of the parasites. A small pile of removed larvae gradually formed around him. Still twitching slightly on the ground, Rafi spoke quietly in a soothing voice so that the animal would not panic and try to get up. With each parasite removed, the cheetah began to breathe a little more evenly and blinked more consciously. All Rafi could do was continue to carefully clean one area after another, trying to relieve the predator's condition as quickly as possible. Rafi got to his feet, dusted off his knee, and immediately took out his radio. He moved a couple of steps away from the cheetah to get a better signal, shielded the radio from the sun with his hand, and transmitted the coordinates. His voice was quick and clear as he reported on the predator's serious condition and requested urgent transport. The dispatch center responded immediately. The nearest crew was already on the way. Rafi nodded to himself, took a deep breath, and sat down next to the cheetah again, monitoring its breathing while help was on the way. A few minutes later, the familiar low hum of an engine appeared in the distance. Rafi looked up. A white SUV with a small flashing light on the roof was approaching him on the dusty road. The car was moving fast, leaving a long trail of dust behind it. When it finally stopped nearby, two rescuers got out. Rafi briefly explained the situation and pointed to the cheetah lying on the ground. The veterinarians quickly checked the animal's condition, prepared a stretcher, and nodded to Rafi. They were ready to start the transfer. 3 men worked together to lift the cheetah, taking care not to touch the inflamed areas of skin. The predator twitched slightly but was too weak to resist. They carefully laid him on a wide field stretcher, fastened the straps, and carried him to the open door of the rear compartment of the vehicle. A few seconds later, the cheetah was lying inside on a soft bedding, and one of the veterinarians was connecting an oxygen mask to it. Rafi slammed the door, took a step back, and exhaled. The hardest part was over. When the vehicle stopped at the veterinary clinic, the team acted as quickly and efficiently as possible. The rear door swung open, and Rafi was the first to get out, checking that the stretcher was secure. A group of veterinarians in sterile gowns was already waiting for them at the clinic. The corridor was cool, white lamps evenly lit the way, and the smell of disinfectant hung in the air. Rafi and the other rescuers carefully carried the stretcher through the corridors, trying not to shake the cheetah. It barely moved its tail, still weak from parasites and the long journey. Along the way, the veterinarians asked questions, and Rafi answered briefly, without taking his eyes off the animal. Everything was already prepared in the operating room. The table was clean, the instruments were laid out, and the lamps were directed downward. The team gently transferred the cheetah to the metal surface, securing it with soft straps so that it would not accidentally jerk. The veterinarians connected an IV, checked his breathing, and then began treating his wounds. Rafi stood nearby, handing them gauze pads and solutions, and holding the instruments they asked for. Long inflamed trails were visible on the cheetah's back and thighs, traces of numerous parasites. Step by step, they cleaned each wound, giving the animal a chance to recover. When the wound treatment was complete, the veterinarians carefully began applying bandages, covering each inflamed area. Rafi held the cheetah by the front of its torso to keep it from moving, while the soft, sterile bandages were applied evenly and tightly. The lamps continued to shine directly on the table, highlighting the red marks left by the larvae, now carefully covered. The predator's breathing became more even, and it was clear from his body that the pain was subsiding. After the bandaging, the stretcher was carefully moved to a recovery box with soft bedding and a warm infrared lamp. Rafi helped make the cheetah more comfortable, adjusted the blanket on the side, and stepped back while the vet connected the monitoring equipment. The indicators on the screen confirmed a stable pulse and calm breathing. Now all that remained for the wounded predator was to recover in the quiet of the clinic. A few days later, when the wounds had completely healed and the cheetah was standing firmly on its paws, Rafi and the veterinarians took it out to an open clearing behind the clinic. The predator looked around, shook its head, and gently but swiftly darted forward, disappearing into the tall grass. Rafi watched it go, feeling a quiet satisfaction. Another life returned to the wild. Subscribe and help us give more animals a second chance. See you next time.